Hey, where are you? We're having a drink without you right now. It was my welcome party. I booked a pub with a capacity of 90 people. It was my welcome party, but no one showed up at the venue I was told to book myself. You can come once you pay the full cancellation fee for that place. My supervisor, David's voice had a mocking tone when we spoke over the phone. Same old story. David consistently singled me out with these subtle forms of harassment. All because I used to be a temp worker. It's unfair. An entirely unreasonable cause for such treatment. Yet, I endured such bullying. I kept bearing it, over and over. But this time, I couldn't take it anymore. Well then, all of you are fired. I just said that and then hung up the phone. David didn't know who I really am. I'm Ethan Bamford. I have one elder brother. He is much older than me. His name is Kyle Abbott. Our parents divorced when I was in elementary school. I was taken in by my mother, while my elder brother, who was in high school, was taken in by my father. After they divorced, they never met again, but as siblings occasionally got together, chatted, and played games. We got along very well. Kyle, who's 10 years older than me, has always looked out for me. In the past, my brother used to come to pick me up from school, and on the way back, we would sometimes grab fast food together before heading home. He even used to play with my friends at the park. Even though we lived apart, we frequently met up and continued to bond, so the strong relationship between us siblings remained intact over time. Despite the enjoyable time spent with Kyle, life with my mom was financially challenging. Our divorced dad didn't provide any child support. Because of that, Mom always worked so hard to support me. Even as a kid, I could tell our finances were tight. I want to help Mom out, even if it's just a little. In order to support my mother, who was raising me as a single parent, I started working part-time at a pub when I was in high school. From after school till late at night. I worked hard, covering at least my school expenses. Of course, even as a high school student, my good relationship with Kyle continued. Being older and already in the workforce, Kyle often shared with me the realities and challenges of the working world. From manners to mindset, to the importance of never forgetting one's roots in a job. My brother's words, which I hold in deep affection, carried more weight than any other words, and they naturally found their place within me. I always looked up to him during my high school years. Seeing him work hard, staying grounded, and striving was truly awe-inspiring. Then one day, "Ethan, I've been thinking about starting my own business. What do you think?" I was taken aback by his proposal. My brother worked tirelessly to establish a solid position for himself. He eventually grew to start his own business. "If anyone can do it, it's you, brother," I responded without hesitation. I was genuinely proud of my brother's entrepreneurial journey. My dear brother. He gradually became someone I looked up to and eventually became respected by all. I was so proud of him. After graduating from college, I took a job at the same pub where I had worked since high school. When I was working, my brother often came by with friends to eat. Not just that, on days when I didn't have shifts, we'd go to that very pub where I worked for drinks. People often say that working at a pub is tough, but I always felt that this place wasn't too bad. I loved working there because it was rewarding and fun. The pub, which initially was just one establishment, expanded to a second, then a third, and then a fourth location because their sales were booming. One day, out of the blue, having worked for a long time and having a reputation for being diligent, my boss said to me, "How about managing our second branch?" I had to think before giving my response. The job is fun, and there's a sense of accomplishment. Honestly, it's a very tempting offer. But I had set a goal for myself. to work at the pub until I'm 30. I have a dream, and to achieve that dream, I need to retire around 30, so I'm not sure. I've heard about that. Still, I want you to take it." Even after I told him that I can only work until I reach 30, my boss didn't change his mind. "There's only one thing I can do." "All right, let me do it. I'll definitely hold down the fort at the second branch." Making that declaration was a very courageous step. But the experiences I've gathered over the years gave me a nudge. I was filled with excitement to embrace new challenges rather than apprehension. The boss, hearing my response, smiled contentedly and patted my shoulder gently, signaling his expectations. "I'll fulfill my duties until the day I leave." That's the attitude I learned from Kyle, as a senior in the workforce. In the second establishment, just as before, I poured my heart into every aspect, valuing the customers, service, and the quality of food. From lively greetings to offering meals that provided more value than their expense. We tackled even the smallest tasks without cutting corners. Our staff's hard work paid off, and the pub's reputation certainly grew. "Thank you. Delicious. We'll be back. Always feel good coming here." The bustling interior was filled with such words and smiles. It wasn't just about eating. To make sure our customers left with a smile, we put our all into our work, no matter how small the task. Then, the year I turned 30. Having led the staff as the supervisor for so many years, I handed over my position to a subordinate and left the pub. After working there for many years, I certainly felt a sense of accomplishment, but there was also a lingering doubt about whether I had genuinely served the establishment's best interests. However, on the day I resigned, my subordinates held a farewell party for me. At the party, one of them grabbed my hand and said, "From now on, I'll carry on what I learned from you, Ethan." From 16 to 30. Looking back, I had spent nearly half my life at the pub. Touched by the warmth of that workplace, I felt a surge of emotion. With colleagues who believed in me and subordinates who looked up to me, I had the feeling that my resignation was indeed regrettable. It felt like all my hard work had been recognized, and I was elated. After retiring, I registered with a certain temp agency. And from there, for about a year, I worked at various companies as a temporary worker. From 6-month long-term temp assignments to 1-month short-term stints, shift-based assignments, and even one-day gigs. Even though they all fell under the umbrella of temp work, there were many types I hadn't known about until I tried them. I worked in various roles at different companies. Having only ever worked at a pub before, through these temp jobs, I got to experience a wide range of professions. From cashiering at a large supermarket, restocking shelves, office clerical work, to factory jobs and delivery services. Each one was a fresh and new experience for me. The more I experienced, the more I felt it was adding value to my skills. I started to get a sense of the essence of a society that functions thanks to the efforts of so many individuals. Then, a year later, I joined the temp agency that had been dispatching me, this time as a full-time employee. I was placed in the sales department. This department was quite big, with as many as 90 staff members. Now, this is where the real journey begins. I took a new step forward for my goals. Filled with hope and enthusiasm in my new life, my colleagues in the sales department welcomed me as a member of the team. I had a good feeling about it. I wanted to enjoy working at this new company. But reality had a cruel way of dashing such hopes. There was one person who didn't welcome me with open arms. It was David, the supervisor. The moment he learned about my background, he sneered. He was the only one who consistently belittled me. Whenever he referred to someone as the guy from the temp agency, he was talking about me. Just because he started as a temp, you think he's only good for making coffee, but I mean, having a guy make coffee for you. He probably can't handle it. That's the problem with those who are temps. There's no real task you can trust to a former temp, right? Heck, can you even tell me what he's capable of? Comments like these were a daily occurrence for me. Just because I transitioned from a temp position to a full-time job doesn't mean I'm less capable. But David assumed that temp equal incompetent, low skills, and never stopped mocking me. It seemed like he enjoyed publicly belittling me, loudly calling me the former temp for everyone to hear as some sort of warning. I believe that one day they'll understand. If I prove my capabilities as an employee, they should treat me better. I had no choice but to believe that, so I dedicated myself diligently to my daily tasks. I gave my all, drawing from all my past experiences. Yet, David never stopped mocking me. In fact, he started to interfere with my work. For instance, I secured a major deal for the company. David reported it to the higher-ups as if it were his own accomplishment. He took credit for my achievements, being my superior. On the other hand, I found myself burdened with his work as if it were expected. Of course, this meant I had even less time for my own work, but he'd only ever do the final touches himself. So, his behavior never really became a big issue. These interferences escalated little by little into pure harassments. On days when I had booked the conference room, it'd be used ahead of my time slot without any explanation. In other words, it meant that I was causing inconvenience to my clients. Furthermore, he even deliberately messed up the pay calculations for the temp staff I was in charge of. As a result, I began receiving complaints from them. For me, if the harassment was directed solely at me, I could bear it, because only I would be affected. I tried to ignore it, thinking it would blow over. But causing inconvenience to clients and temp staff was something I just couldn't forgive. I didn't want to involve others. The guilt of causing trouble to innocent people because of me was unbearable. And so, I ended up inconveniencing many. Despite all this happening, I never once had concrete evidence that the supervisor did this on purpose. What should I do? What's the best course of action? Days of agonizing thoughts continued without any solutions. Perhaps some pitied my situation. Occasionally, colleagues would quietly leave snacks on my desk, and some supervisors would always treat me to coffee when we met at the vending machine. From them, I could sense a kind of sympathy. But while they'd give me these sympathetic looks, no one openly defended me. That's how intimidating David was, wielding such influence in the department. But still, such simple warmth was very precious to me at the time, and I was so grateful. A cup of coffee slightly more expensive than the one the boss was buying for himself. The warmth of that coffee was the very warmth of the boss who gave it to me. Their presence was my emotional support. Then one day, I heard shocking words from David. "Hey, newbie, book a place for 90 people. We're throwing you a welcome party." Incredibly, the supervisor was planning a welcome party for me that day. But it's my welcome party, and I have to be the organizer. Isn't that a bit odd? I'm supposed to handle it. Yes, you're taking care of it. Detecting my displeasure, David raised an eyebrow, looking like he wanted to say, "Got an issue," and then sneered as he let out a mocking laugh through his nose. He left saying just one thing: "Anyone can make a restaurant reservation. Perfect for a temp like you." It was clearly a directive. With no other choice, I began searching for a venue for the gathering. Is that so? It's difficult. Understood. Thank you, I appreciate it and hope to speak again soon. Finding a suitable place for the event was no easy task. After all, it's a massive department. With a whopping 90 people and not much time left until the event, it wasn't easy. Not many restaurants were willing to accommodate such challenging conditions. So, I called up a place I knew. "Hello, hope you're doing well. It's Ethan. "Oh, Ethan, it's been a while. What's up?" It was the pub where I used to work. Even after I quit, we'd stayed in touch, and they'd always been helpful. "I have a situation. I'm trying to find a place that can accommodate 90 people for dinner." 90 people. That's a lot. Given how last minute it was, my request was quite a big ask. However, when I explained the situation to my former workplace, they gladly accepted, saying, "Anything for Ethan. Are you sure about this? It's your welcome party, Ethan. We gotta make it big." Their kindness touched my heart, and I felt a warmth in my eyes. That's how I made a reservation for 90 people. Given the number, we essentially booked the entire place. "Thank you so much." "Don't mention it. It's $40 per person. You can pay on the day." Their kindness extended to letting me pay on the day of the event. I was genuinely filled with gratitude and appreciation. Then, the day finally arrived. I headed straight to the party venue from a client meeting. Standing in front of that familiar old sign, memories from a few years back when I worked there came flooding back so vividly. The fun times and the challenges. In those memories, there were always staff members who lent a helping hand. Today, as well, they accepted my request. This place has always been filled with kindness and a genuine care for people. I felt nostalgic about the past and sometimes envied my younger self. But when I think about my current department, well, it's not that bad. It then hit me why I had come here today. That's right, it was my welcome party. Normally, David gives me a hard time, always making things difficult for me, but even so, he organized this welcome party for me. It's not all bad. There are people who truly see me and understand what I'm going through. Lost in nostalgia between the past and present, I reached out to open the familiar curtain at the entrance. The moment I opened it, a warm and inviting aroma, filled with love, tickled my nostrils. However, when I looked inside, there was no sign of anyone. What's going on? This can't be right. It's impossible. With a reservation for 90 people, it was highly unusual to see only one person. The staff at the pub showed clear signs of anxiety. I couldn't comprehend the situation, and time just kept moving. The owner and the staff, despite their evident worries, kept preparing for the feast. Just as the starting time approached, I got a call from David. "David, where the heck are you, man?" True to his style, I could sense David's chuckling tone through the phone. I had a bad feeling. "What do you mean where? I'm at the venue we booked. Where are you?" "We're somewhere else, having drinks without you right now." "Excuse me." His nonsensical words made something snap inside of me. It was the sound of my breaking point, which I had been purely holding onto. "We're partying over here. If you cover the full cancellation fee there, you can come join us." That was the last straw. I couldn't stand the constant mockery and humiliation any longer. I shouldn't have had to endure this in the first place. I never should have been treated like this from the get-go. The anger I had bottled up for so long began to pour out like a river. I couldn't hold back any longer. "Well then, fine. I'm firing everyone over there with you." I said that and hung up before David could respond. Jeez. I've reached my limit. I've had enough. In a venue reserved for 90 people, I stood there alone. Set up and left hanging, the weight on my chest felt unbearable. At that moment, a man approached me. It was my brother, Kyle. Kyle's company was currently in a big deal with this pub. He had visited the pub numerous times due to the deal. He was helping out that day since there was a large gathering of 90 people. "What's going on here, Kyle?" "The thing is, it was supposed to be my welcome party, but David," I explained everything that happened. "That's ridiculous. This can't happen. And this, what are we going to do about it?" A furious Kyle immediately called David. It's the CEO speaking. You're fired, effective immediately. I don't care. You're fired. Don't bother coming in anymore. My brother delivered the firing news over the phone. David was taken aback by the sudden call and its content from my brother, Kyle. It seemed he rushed over here, his face dripping with sweat. He must have been drinking. His eyes, slightly reddened from the alcohol, were wide with shock at the situation. It made sense. Right after I told him, "I'll fire you," the CEO himself directly declared his termination. Moreover, upon arriving, he sees the CEO, Kyle, and me side by side in the spacious venue. He was visibly flustered, not comprehending the situation. About the firing. CEO, why are you here? David was panicking, his mind going blank. His usual smug smirk was gone, replaced by a pale face covered in cold sweat. In fact, the company my brother started was the staffing agency where we work. We had different last names due to our parents' divorce. None of the employees, including David, knew this fact. Is there a problem with me being here? No, not exactly. The CEO glared at David, his voice several times deeper than usual. David, in response, noticeably flinched from fear. David, what's going on here? Well, there was a minor mix-up. It seemed like Ethan made a mistake. Incredibly, even now, David tried to spin a blatant lie. Even while shaken, he tried to throw someone else under the bus, looking for an escape. I felt my anger surge, ready to explode any second. David, I just booked the venue because you told me to. But just as I was about to say it, my brother placed his hand on my shoulder. Listen up, David. Ethan, he's my younger brother. What? Your brother? David was taken aback, unable to process the sudden revelation. My brother continued to address the bewildered David. So, is this situation due to Ethan's mistake? With cold eyes and a sharp gaze, my brother, Kyle, calmly questioned the David. David was trembling slightly, unable to utter a word. Well, no, it's not. David's voice was pubely audible. Tell me, David, what kind of business are we in? We're a staffing agency. That's right. Our company is a staffing agency. At the moment, we mainly provide staff for office jobs. I was thinking of expanding to restaurants as well. David seemed unable to grasp the situation and remained silent. Perhaps he was so shocked that he couldn't think straight. You've trampled over this. Actually, Kyle had been visiting this pub with the intent to expand his business. A staffing agency. Currently, they mainly focus on office jobs, but that limits the scope of people they can employ. Among the registered temp workers, some have had children and can't work full-time, or some prefer shift work due to their personal circumstances. Kyle had been thinking about accommodating these folks by increasing dealings with restaurants and eateries. He had been in talks with this very pub, where I used to work, to accept temp workers as a first step. That's why I came to this pub today. Because of this incident, our company has caused significant inconvenience to a potential major client. I didn't mean to. In this business world, trust is easily lost. We'll probably lose the deal to place our temp staff there. Do you know what you have done? You have caused serious trouble and damage to the company. Therefore, you are fired as of today. Upon hearing Kyle's words, David went pale and collapsed on the spot. Only then did he fully realize the magnitude of his error. Just pay the cancellation fee and it's over. David's mindset disregarded someone else's hard work and efforts. All the preparations for that day, the food, the venue, the staff, everything went to waste. David's harassment was a despicable act that insulted everyone involved in the preparation of this banquet. And there was nothing particularly special about this banquet. The numerous harassments the supervisor had inflicted upon me. Because of that, Many have been inconvenienced over time. I wasn't the only one who had been harassed. David eventually realized his mistakes. But by now, it was too late to do anything about it. "I'm truly sorry." The soft-spoken voice of David quietly faded away in the pub. My brother, Kyle, would surely never forgive David. From what I had learned from Kyle, the supervisor's conduct was far from what was expected of a professional. Originally, I had planned to work at a pub for a while and then join Kyle's company, the pub that had supported me for half of my life. I wanted to give back, even if just a little, so I did everything I could for it. I worked tirelessly, hoping my efforts would benefit the place. After retiring at the age of 30, I wanted to learn the ropes, to understand our customers' feelings, so I worked as a temp for a year. Life's continuous learning curve made that year incredibly enlightening for me. I learned so much and expanded my perspective. I realized how many people worked hard every day to make things happen. Knowing how hard it was made me realize gratitude that I had not noticed before. Eventually, everything was set, and I eagerly joined the company. Not just my work performance after starting, but also David's dismissive attitude toward temp staff. Kyle, the CEO, was aware of all of it. I bore it, but David's behavior was beyond acceptable to anyone. And then came this incident. The disciplinary action taken against David reflected his lack of regard for the essential temp staff. No one in the company objected to the punishment. If we didn't have temp staff, our staffing agency wouldn't make a dime. In essence, temporary staff are incredibly valuable and are in fact our clients. Please never forget this. The next morning's company meeting, the CEO announced to all staff the importance of not belittling temp workers, referencing David's previous behavior. Though the CEO spoke in a calm tone, his words and expression conveyed utmost seriousness, and it deeply resonated with all of us employees. With this message, even those influenced by David seemed to be realigning their attitude. On the other hand, those who have been intimidated by David, they finally seem to be working more freely and confidently. "Ethan, I'm sorry I couldn't help you before." Although no one else had done anything wrong, my boss apologized to me. But in truth, I was saved by the cup of coffee he gave me. I wanted to express my thanks. With that sentiment, this time, I gave him a coffee. Of course, it was a slightly more expensive one than usual. 6 months later, I became the sales director. Drawing from my experiences during the year as a temp worker, I made it my mission to prioritize and value our temp staff more. For instance, I initiated short-term workshops for free office skill training and organized seminars to help find the right job match. The feedback was generally positive. I am now thinking that we need to distribute discount coupons from children's clothing manufacturers, or maybe an office makeover classes. "Ethan, what about setting up a childcare area?" "That's a thought. There might already be folks in our department who'd benefit from that." Additionally, I believe we need to enhance the benefits for our temp staff, perhaps a medical service through affiliated hospitals. Collaborating with hospitals might even present business expansion opportunities, don't you think? Within the department, there's always an immediate sharing of what's thought to be necessary. The company is held together not by one person, but by all its employees. Every voice is equally valuable and cherished. For the sake of our invaluable temp staff and the employees, the whole company comes together to think of what can be done, and to make this department a warm, cohesive team. Making sure that those who work for us feel a sense of comfort was my goal. I visited the pub so many times with the CEO, Kyle. We visited time and time again, going there to apologize. Finally, the pub forgave us for the blunder we made that day. Thanks to that, we managed to successfully bring on board the temp staff. Now, it's easier for the temp staff to find and do their jobs. From the pub's perspective, they get diligent workers and can more easily manage shifts. In such a manner, it's been well received by both parties. Our goals, the ones we set out for, have borne fruit in this way. Moving forward, we want to expand and collaborate with more eateries. We're working hard towards that goal. Hey bro, what's up? On the day I went to negotiate with a new restaurant, I called out to my elder brother. You know, I've always looked up to you, bro. Heh, what's gotten into you all of a sudden? You're making me blush. My brother responded with a gentle smile. It was the same expression he wore years ago, waiting for me outside the school gates. I still do, of course, but I feel like admiration alone isn't enough anymore. Yeah, he seemed to be genuinely listening to my heartfelt confession. I have to take responsibility for the company and for our staff, just like you do. Absolutely. So, little by little, I want to stand beside you, matching your strides. The more I spoke, the more embarrassed I became. I could tell my face was turning red from the heat of it all. So, what I'm trying to say is, let's keep pushing forward together, all right? I said, with a hint of resignation. My brother's eyes crinkled at the corners, and he gave a sly grin. Yeah, of course, let's keep growing and strengthening the company, just like we've always done. But, while saying this, he looked straight into my eyes. I've always seen you, Ethan, as an equal. I'm relying on you now and always will. We looked at each other and smiled in front of the door of BQQ joint, which was crowded at night. It was a mix of feeling embarrassed and elated. Well, let's keep valuing all our staff and customers, just as we always have. Absolutely. Never forget our roots. As kids, we spent a lot of time apart. Because of that, we've promised to join forces even more as we move forward, aiming to grow our company. A company, in a way, might just be like a big family, where everyone looks out for and supports each other. I believe that's how we truly grow. Standing in front of our towering company, I felt proud to be a part of it. Nice to meet you all. From today, I'll be working here. My name is George. Looking forward to working with all of you. For various reasons, I ended up changing jobs at the age of 45. The reason is my leg. I was caught up in an accident which has made it difficult for me to walk. In my previous job, I was very active in field sales, but with this leg, there's no way I can do that anymore. When I decided to change jobs, my boss said, I'll check with the higher-ups to see if there's a job you can do, trying to be considerate. However, at that company where field work was the main focus, there probably wasn't a job I could handle. I didn't want to burden the company, so I decided to move on. My name is George. When I was 30, I married my college sweetheart, but we got divorced 3 years later. The reason was that I was too focused on my work and neglected our family. When my wife broached the subject of divorce, I was so shocked that I couldn't eat for a while. It took some time, but I've completely recovered now and am feeling positive again. Since the divorce, I haven't had a girlfriend. Not just because I'm not exactly a ladies' man, but also because I just don't feel like being in a relationship. So, after all that, I switched jobs at the age of 45. Now, because of the accident, I can't walk well. I can walk on my own, but I can't move quickly, so physically demanding jobs are difficult. That's why I shifted to this company, where desk work is the primary focus. By the way, I'm not very good with computers. The fact that I got hired here is nothing short of a miracle. My mentor in the company is Emily. She is 33 and a team leader, younger than me. She's renowned for her beauty in the office, and she's also very efficient at her work. But she's quite reserved, and I didn't know how to interact with her. Moreover, it seemed like she didn't really like me. Looking forward to working with you from today. All right. Even when I greeted her with a smile, she quickly handed me some documents and said, "Please get started on this." I've never been a quick learner, and I tended to make the same mistakes repeatedly. Whenever I messed up, Emily would say, without looking up from her screen, "Please try not to create more work for others." "I'm sorry." Even when I apologized, Emily wouldn't respond. There were colleagues who seemed to enjoy watching me get scolded. One of them was Mike. Mike is the same age as Emily, and they joined the company at the same time. Rumor has it that Mike has a crush on Emily. He's a good-looking guy with a refreshing demeanor. He's not as fast as Emily, but he's one of the top performers in the company. But to be blunt, Mike is kind of a jerk. He's nice to the attractive employees but cold to others. I once overheard him rank female employees, saying things like, "I don't talk to women below a grade A." Since I was having a hard time picking up on the work, he'd mock me saying, "Maybe that's why your wife left you, George." Being new to the company, I couldn't outright deny it and could only manage a wry smile. Some time later, my welcome party was held at the company. That day, I got to chat with colleagues I hadn't talked to before and had a great time. As the party was winding down, one of the colleagues suggested, "We should all go skiing or something next time." Immediately, that colleague glanced at my leg and awkwardly suggested an alternative. "Actually, forget skiing. How about a food tour instead?" While others agreed saying, "Sounds good," I felt guilty for making everyone consider my condition. But then, Mike chimed in. "You know, I actually have these special skiing invitations. I have enough for everyone. How about we all go?" The other co-workers replied, but, looking at me with an uncomfortable expression, "Just go on without me. I'm not as young as the rest of you. Have a good time with the younger folks." Suddenly, Mike burst out laughing. "What are you talking about? I never intended to invite you, George, in the first place. You'd just slow us down." It was clear Mike was heavily drunk, acting much worse than usual. Another co-worker defended me, saying, "That's a bit too much, don't you think?" But Mike didn't care. Getting even more drunk, he mocked, "Being single at 45, things must be tough for you, huh?" Then, placing his hand on Emily's shoulder, he said, "Poor Emily, maybe I should be the one training you." As I was pondering how to respond, Emily, who was nearby, rebuked, "Stop making baseless comments. I'm George's mentor here. And Mike, you've had too much. Maybe cool down in the restroom or something." Seeing Emily's calm demeanor, the room went silent. Mike was probably at a loss for words. On our way home, I thanked Emily. "Thank you for earlier." "No problem." She simply replied and said nothing more. During those days, I heard a rumor. Apparently, Emily had turned down Mike's advances. In fact, Mike had previously spoken well of Emily, but suddenly he began bad-mouthing her behind her back. She thinks she's all that just because she's pretty. I've heard she's leading multiple guys on. Women like her get too engrossed in their work and miss their chance to settle down. And so on, with Mike continuously putting down Emily. Other co-workers would remark, "Man, he's such a small-minded guy," but Mike was oblivious to it all. A while later, Emily was handed a major business deal. She worked overtime daily, meticulously preparing the documents. I could see the fatigue in her eyes, and I'm sure she continued working even at home. Then, the night before the deal, as I was working late, I noticed Mike acting suspiciously near Emily's desk. "What's he up to?" When I approached him, he snapped, "What do you want?" Curious, I inquired about his actions, to which he replied with a smirk, "None of your business," and walked away. I had a bad feeling about this, and my suspicions were confirmed. Emily failed the business deal. Instead of the required documents, she ended up distributing unrelated papers to the client. Upon returning to the office, Emily was severely reprimanded by the boss. "What were you thinking?" I'm truly sorry, but I had checked the contents of the envelope the day before, and everything was in order. The cover was the same, but the inside documents were switched. I was shocked. I thought maybe someone mistakenly placed it on my desk. Who would do such a thing? Who would create a document just to switch the inside? Think of a better excuse. Emily was visibly shaken and red-faced. It seems that during the business meeting, the client said it was unacceptable and was very upset. Could it be? Recalling Mike's actions the previous night, it hit me. He did something to her documents. He set Emily up, I'm sure of it. When I glanced over at Mike, he was enjoying watching Emily being scolded with a smirk. I knew it. I was sure. During the lunch break, I approached Mike. Can we talk for a sec? What do you want, old man? I straight up asked him, did you switch Emily's documents? Without hiding anything, he replied. Yeah, so, I kinda want to give that woman a taste of her own medicine. What are you thinking? Sabotaging her work just because you got rejected is messed up, right? Emily worked so hard for that day. Tell your boss the truth now. Shut up. Stay out of this, old man. With that, he bumped into me on purpose, and Mike walked away. That guy, I knew it. Realizing Mike was the culprit, I couldn't stay silent. I immediately told the truth to my boss. But the boss didn't even consider it. It was hard to believe that Mike, who was competent and had been with the company for many years, would set up a colleague. I wish I had recorded what Mike said that day. Emily looked so down. She had worked so hard every day, and it was unforgivable for her to be treated so terribly. I wanted to protect her by revealing the truth somehow. I was getting frustrated as I couldn't figure out how. One day, I overheard a colleague saying, Emily might be transferred to the regional branch. I heard the directors talking about it earlier. It seemed Emily also heard about this. She murmured in a low voice. It's over for me. Maybe I should just accept the transfer quietly. I made the representative of AB Trading Company so angry. It can't be helped. I was surprised to hear that. You just mentioned AB Trading Company. Yes, you know it, right? It's a big company. Emily, don't give up yet. We can definitely do something about this. Will you trust me with this? Huh? Emily made a shocked expression at those words. Soon after, I made a call to a person. Hello, long time no see. It's George. Sorry for calling suddenly. CEO Johnson. The company that Emily failed in the big deal was my former employer. I was surprised to hear the company name from her. I never mentioned my previous job, and I hadn't told anyone the company's name. I was so close to the CEO of my previous company, Mr. Johnson, that we occasionally went out for drinks. CEO Johnson is a young company CEO who is 3 years younger than me, and he is quite strict about his work. But he's a person who appreciates the hard work of his subordinates, and I respect him a lot. Even if you don't get results, the process of your efforts is important, he always said. I didn't have any talent, but my only strength was my effort, and fortunately, CEO Johnson always appreciated me. In fact, there is a connection between me and the CEO. He has a young son, and I once saved him from a traffic accident. On my way to work one day, I saw a boy trying to cross the road in front of me, and a truck was coming towards him. However, the boy does not notice this and continues walking. Watch out! With that shout, I pushed the boy out of the danger. The boy was safe, but I ended up with a lingering injury in my leg. The boy I saved turned out to be the son of CEO Johnson. That day, Mr. Johnson had left his work phone at home, and since his son had the day off from school, he was on his way to deliver it to the office when the incident happened. I don't regret saving his son. I decided to leave the company, partly because I couldn't do field sales anymore, but also because I felt my presence would make Mr. Johnson feel guilty and cause him pain. so I chose to distance myself from that company. Before I quit, Mr. Johnson told me, "If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know. I'll do whatever I can to help." I remembered him saying that. After hanging up with Mr. Johnson, I shared the news with my colleague, Emily. "The CEO himself is coming to talk to us." "Thank you. I had no idea that client was where you used to work, George." She was equally surprised. And a few days later, CEO Johnson visited our office. Seeing me, he offered a smile. And I was also included in the meeting. "I'm really sorry for all the trouble," Emily apologized. In response to Emily's apologies, CEO Johnson calmly says, "Don't forget to check everything in advance. This is good manners as a member of society." "Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm deeply sorry." As Emily continued to apologize, Mr. Johnson's expression softened. "I've heard about you from George. You've prepared quite extensively for this project's negotiations. I'm eager to see the ideas you've come up with." "Yes, of course." After that, Emily presented the materials and started explaining to Mr. Johnson. And guess what? The deal was a success. Great project. It must have taken a lot of effort to research and compile this. We'd definitely like to collaborate with your company on this. "Thank you so much." Emily was on the brink of tears with joy. Beforehand, our boss had told CEO Johnson about a colleague's harassment regarding this matter. Mr. Johnson had failed to investigate and just took his employee's word for it. Higher-ups were reprimanded for their behavior. Soon after, that colleague, Mike, was confronted and confessed his intentions to discredit Emily. He ended up getting demoted. On the other hand, Emily led the project to success, was recognized for her achievements, and got promoted from team leader to department head. I was genuinely happy for her, seeing her hard work pay off. One day, Emily approached me. "Thank you so much for everything, and I'm sorry for sometimes being presumptuous despite being younger." I responded to the apologetic Emily. "Don't worry about it, it never bothered me." Then Emily said, "If you don't dislike me, I'd like to treat you to a meal sometime, as a way of saying thanks." Surprised by the invitation, I blurted out, "Really? Are you sure?" Emily smiles and says, "Yes." It was the first time I saw her genuinely smile, and it gave me butterflies. Gradually, I got more used to the job and was trusted with significant tasks. I started going out with Emily for drinks occasionally, and we gradually deepened our friendship. I don't know what the future holds, but life is short. Hoping for more good times ahead, I continue to work diligently, facing my computer every day.